last time, where you have a reference cell and then you tell it how many rows or how many columns to move over to get the information you need. And then we also talked about the 3G offset, where you kind of use the offset to select an area that has a particular height and a particular width. But then to kind of summarize that, you need to, on the outside of the offset, put a sum, an average, a min, or whatever function, yeah? So let's go ahead and go to the offset function worksheet and do that. Okay, so here we have an example, and it's kind of a contrived example. But we have some physicians, and we have the number of patients that they saw, okay, on any given month. And what we want to know is, depending on what I enter in E2, I want to say how many visits occurred in that month. So if I have a 2 here, this should say 61, 42, 43, and so forth. Is that clear? Or if I have this as month 3, then this should be 62, 48, you know, the visits in the 3rd month. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, if I have, for the cumulative number of visits, if I have 2, then this would be 124, which is the 63 plus the 61. Yes or no?
Yes.
So if I say cumulative over the first 2 months, then this is going to be what? 83, and this one will be 46, and so forth. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Whereas if I say just 1, then what is the cumulative visit here going to be?
63.
63, so they will both be 63, because the number of visits in the first month is the same as the cumulative over the first month, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do first the offset to just get the number of visits. Okay, so offset, what do I want to use as my reference?
Month number.
You want me to use this?
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna be trouble, but let's go, we can do it. Okay. All right, Akanksha's gonna make us work hard, so. Okay, so now if that's my offset, okay, what do I want? How do I get, remember, right, offset says, now tell me how many rows and how many columns I need to go to get to the information that I want.
No, that is not supposed to be 1.
Okay. Do you guys wanna try another reference cell?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it just, let's try another reference cell, and then we'll come back and we'll do E5. Okay, but that's a really tricky reference cell. Somebody think of an easier reference cell.
A7.
A7, okay. And then how many rows do I need to go to get to the information that I need?
1.
Mhm.
0. I'm already in the row that I need to be in. So I'm here to get the information for Dr. Smith. I don't have to move anywhere. I'm already in that row. Do you guys see that?
Mm.
Okay, how many columns do I need to move over to get the information that I need?
1.
Okay, what if I wanted the information for month 2? Okay, so what do I want to put as the number of columns? Where, is it a number or is it a cell reference?
It's a cell reference.
Which one?
Month. Number of months. Or
E5.
no.
And what do I need to do to the E5?
Lock.
I need to lock it. Okay, so now this is gonna give me the information that I need, and then I need to sum these guys. So let me show it to you again. Okay. that you can see it. There is the function, yeah? Okay, let's try, what would be another way to do it? So let's try, the offset with, this being our reference cell, right? But I think we need to lock that, because otherwise it's gonna be really hard. So if this is our offset, how many rows do we need to go to get the oh, we don't need to lock it, we don't want to lock it. How many rows do we need to go to get to the information that I want? 2. I need to go down 1, 2, okay, and then how many columns do I need to move? Okay, what if it was 2? What if the month was 2? So, okay. So if the month was 3, right? So if the month was 3, I needed to move -1. If the month was 2, I needed to move -2. And if the month was 1, I needed to move -3. Yeah? Okay, I can't think of the formula now. My brain's not working. So let's see, what would we do? We would do, E5 minus 4. Okay, and that's gonna give us the answer that we want.
Why did we do E5 minus 10?
Oh,
You need to lock the first one.
oh, but that's not gonna, yeah, it's gonna be, I need to lock this one. Right? Yeah, I need to lock this one. That will work.
You need to lock both E5s.
I don't think so.
Because you're gonna move down, so even,
No, I don't need to lock both, because if I lock the first E5, it won't go down, it'll always just go down
if we
1.
wanna lock, we can just lock the column if we want to.
But there's no
Yeah,
point,
no point.
right? There's no point in doing that. So this is what we would do, if we wanted to use E5 as our reference cell, okay? It's very complicated, you see? Because you need to really think through kind of what the value of E5, and then kind of, if this is the value of V5, what do we need to move to get to the cells that we want? Okay, all right. So now, let's do the cumulative number of visits. Okay, so here, we know that we're gonna do a sum with an offset. Okay, so what reference cell do we want to use? Okay, we wanna do A7 again. Okay, so remember, when we have a bunch of cells that we want to sum, okay, this is what we want to sum, we need to figure out how to get from our reference cell to this upper leftmost. That's what we need to figure out. So what is the upper leftmost cell that we need to get to for Dr. Smith? B7. So if my reference cell is A7, how many rows do I need to move to get to B7?
1.
I'm in A7.
Oh,
How many rows?
0.
0,
Zero.
right? How many columns do I need to move over?
1.
1. Okay, so now, I'm gonna take a break here, give me a second. I'm gonna make this 2 so that you can see what's going on. Okay, so now, if I have, so I'm in A7, I stay in that row, I move over 1, that puts me here. If I want the cumulative for 2 months, what is the height for Dr. Smith's area? What's the height of Dr. Smith's area? How many rows? 1. Every doctor just has 1 row is their height. And then if I want to sum over 2 months, what is the width?
E5.
E5, that's right, E5, and then I need to lock it. Okay, so if I start at E7, I don't need to go move down any rows, I'm already in the right row. I need to move 1 column to get to the start of Dr. Smith's area. I'm going to sum an area that is one row high, and I'm gonna sum as many as the number of months that is dictated by E5. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I say 3 here, then I have 186, which is the sum of the 3 months. Whereas if I say 1, then both columns give me the same result. And if I say 2, I get the first 2 months. Okay? All right, so that's it for offset. I will give some problems with offset in the homework for you to see how to use it. I think that in the scheme of things, you really need to know VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP with the match, okay? And I think knowing the index is really important. I think offset, it's not something that you use very often. But just so that you know. Okay, talking about Excel tables, you saw that on the homework this week. The reason why we use Excel tables is to allow us to to better manage data. It allows for great formatting, and I'll show you, and it's formatting that is dynamic. If you add more data, the formatting updates automatically. And so when I used to, when I first started teaching a million years ago, I used to format my tables with like a gray and a white for each student. And if a student wanted to add my class, I'm like, oh God, please let his name be Zimmerman. Go in the end because it was a mess. But with now Excel tables, it's really easy. It has this ability to create a total row, which provides summary statistics. So it's really nice. When we go, please, to the next worksheet, it's called on the data side.
Intro Excel tables.
Intro to Excel tables, okay? And if you, there's a couple things you can do. You can press Control Q if you have your data, if your cursor anywhere in the data. And if you do, you're gonna get the Quick Analysis tool, and you're gonna see the option for tables there. Okay, if you go to the option, click on the option for table, and the first one is if you click on table, it's going to automatically format the first one, the first option for table. There it is, and it gives you this blue formatted table. Do you guys see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you did that, press Control Z to undo. So that's one quick way to do it. The other way to do it is to just be anywhere and go to the Home tab. Please do this one, Home tab, and then go to the Format as Table. And then there you have like a million choices about how you can format your table, however you like the look of it, okay? If you look on there is a table style options. Do you see that right in the middle of the ribbon? So you can tell it if you want, if the first column in your data, let me show you. So for here, home, format as table. Let's go with something simple and elegant here. It says, is this your range? Did you guys get that?
Yeah.
So if you have an empty column in between or an empty row, it's going to stop. So if you want to select that, you actually have to select it by hand, okay? And so here, when you start, it automatically puts in the filter buttons. Do you see that? You can get rid of the filter buttons by just pressing here on the filter buttons, or you can go to the data tab and kind of say, oh, get rid of the filters. Those are the two ways that you can do that. Let me switch here. We have the contextual tab that we haven't seen before. I wrote to you on the email how to get rid of a table. This contextual tab is going to tell you the formats that you can apply. But what I meant is here, So if you have a first column that you wanna highlight, or the last column you wanna give it an extra emphasis, or if you wanna have banded rows or banded columns. So that's what you can do. Okay, so if I do banded rows, let me switch my style here. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, there we go. So this is my choice of my table, or folks, okay, well, you can pick any format you want, it doesn't matter, yeah? Okay, so now let's continue here. So there's a bunch of things we can do. We have the filter arrows, which we can get rid by clicking on the filter button. We should name our table. So let's enter a descriptive name right here. So if you go to the table, tools design, you should have a table name. Okay, and I would like you to name your table employee data, emp data. And you will see in a minute why that's helpful. So right here, under the table name, we're gonna call it emp data. Okay, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there's a bunch of things we can do. We can delete an employee, so let's go right here. So I'm gonna delete Mr. Cohn from 1037, and I'm gonna delete that row just by right-clicking and saying delete. And notice that it automatically kind of recolored kind of the cells from being, you know, kind of light and then dark colors here. Yes or no?
Yes.
Are you folks with me or no?
Yes.
Okay. We can add a column titled bonus. So if we come right here and we type bonus, okay, it automatically creates the format for the column for us. Take a look at the middle screen, please, just so that you can see. If I did, don't do it. If I did the years of service times 2, it automatically autofills with the same formula. Okay, that is great sometimes when you wanted to do that. It's not so great when you don't want it to do that. But that's what the default. That if you start a calculation, it autofills it for the entire row. Okay. Let's talk about the tables update automatically. We can do sorting and filtering, so we can select a particular, so if we come back and we put the filter, we can sort here, we can sort alphabetically, or we can use the sort command on the table and just ask it to sort, let's say by hire date. Okay, now it's sorted everybody by hire date, so we can do all of the things that we can do originally. We can also filter the data. So here, what I'd like you to do is I want you to filter all, so what this table contains is the data from when we hired, the IG of the folks, when we hire them, what is their last name, birthday, gender, where they work, their job status. We've seen this data set before. Okay, and so what I'd like you to do is to reintroduce the filter arrows, either by going to the data tab and clicking on filter, or by going to the design table tools and clicking on filter. And I'd like you to filter all full-time employees who work either in Austin in the home office and whose annual salary are greater than or equal to 60,000. So let's go ahead and do that. How many people are in your, meet the criteria? So all full-time employees who work in Austin, or in the home office, and who make at more, $60,000 or more. And so under the number filters, you can say greater than or equal to 60,000. Okay. How many records did you find in your table?
29.
So you should have 29. Right, so you should have, what did you get, oh?
How come it's showing that?
So let me show that to you. So let's talk about how do you get the salary for, more than 60,000?
Did you do and
So
home?
under salary right
Did you do
here, let me
and
clear,
home?
so take a look,
Yeah.
please. I have a filter, but I'm gonna click the clear annual salary. And so to get I'm gonna go to annual salary and there's the number filters. Do you see that? And then here I have an option, there's equals to, does not equal, greater than or equal, the top 10, what's above average, or a custom filter. We want greater than or equal. Okay, 2, and then here we add 60,000. Yes? Did folks get now to 29? No?
I don't know how they get the count. Oh.
Here under the location, we need home, and then salary.
I deleted Mr. one of the reason that's why.
Did you get the count? I get the count. I was like, how did she get that? I don't have that one. I only got it when I highlight. Yeah.
Ready, found,
All right, let's talk about a couple of things that you can see, and I think this is true for whether you have tables or not. Take a look, please. Take a look at the middle screen. If you click on the window at the bottom and you right-click, you're gonna have a bunch of information about the average number, numerical count. Okay, I'm gonna select all of these so you can see. So if I pick all of the information in annual salary, it tells me the average, that there are 29. These are all numbers, so the count and the numerical count, what is the minimum salary, the maximum salary, and the total, okay? So sometimes this is helpful if you see some information and you just wanna see the count. So it says, oh, you selected kind of 9 values. I selected 9 values here. Do you guys see that? So that's an option for you to see. Okay, let's continue. We can remove duplicate rows. Okay, so the way that you do this is right there, under remove duplicates, and you have 2 choices. You can either tell it, hey, only remove rows where everything is identical across every single column, okay? Or you can say remove rows where these particular columns are identical, okay? So here it is. So when you click on remove duplicate, you get this option. And so one is the select all option, or you can say, let me select just a subset. So take a look. Okay. So if I'm here and I say, let me clear my filter. I'm gonna clear my filter. Here's how I clear my filter. Take a look at the middle screen. I'm going to just click on the filter button, and now I have everyone back in my data set, okay? So once I remove the filter. So if I go to the table, tools, design, and I say remove duplicates, I have an option where everybody's selected, or I can say, no, unselect, I just want you to check ID and last name. Okay, and it would check all of the options where the ID and last name are duplicate. So don't do it, please just watch the middle screen right now. Okay, so when I do that, it says it removed 10 duplicates, okay? Unfortunately, I don't have a way of seeing those. So the only way that I can see those duplicates is if I were to go like this. And how did I do it the last time to see duplicates? Conditional formatting, right? Highlight duplicate values. And then I would see all of the ones where, and I would have to count what they were. But when I do remove duplicates, if I say, hey, just remove when everything is the same, it's still 10. I just copied a subset of the table and repeated it, okay? But you don't have a way to see it, you just have to trust it. So I don't know that I love that, but that's how it works, okay? All right. Let's continue here. We can add a total row. If we have our table and we click on the button here, do you guys see right here where it says total row? It's gonna add this total row at the bottom. And so in the total row, you can do things like, tell me the average annual salary. Okay, tell me the count of people that are in my data set. Tell me the last hiring date. Tell me the age of the oldest, the birth date of the oldest work. So there are many things. Did people get the total or no? No. Okay, it's under table, tools, design, right there. Under the table style options. Okay, so it's right there. You click on the table tools and then it's right there. Yeah? And then you have multiple options of what you can do. You can pick, you have multiple functions, average, count numbers, and then more functions here, okay? I'm gonna take a quick aside to show you the functions that it uses. It's this function called subtotal. Have folks used this function subtotal?
Nope.
No, okay. So I'll show it to you just so that you can see it, okay? So if you were to just go anywhere else in your worksheet, just anywhere else in your worksheet and type equal subtotal. Just anywhere else. And then press tab. Okay, it's gonna give you a whole list of functions that you can pick. Do you guys see that? Okay, I'm gonna explain it to you and I'll show you the one instance where I think it's really useful, okay? So there are many functions. The functions are numbered. So 1 is, in 101 is the average. Do you guys see that in the middle screen? And 2 and 102 is count and so forth. Okay, what is the difference between the 1 and the 101 and the 2 and the 102? The difference is that when you use the 1, 2, 3, 4, if you hide some information, even if it's hidden from view, it will still count it. Okay, whereas the 102, 101, 102, and so forth, they ignore any cells that are hidden. And so yesterday, or the last time we met, I did a filter and I wanted to sum, and when I summed, it gave me this horrible result, and I said, ignore that, and then I quickly did a subtotal. I used a subtotal for the sum that was the 109, and it ignored all of the hidden values. Okay, so that's when it's useful. All right, let me show you a couple examples. The way that you hide cells or rows is you select them, you right click, and then you click on hide. That's how you hide a row that you don't want to appear. Okay, or a row may be hidden. When you guys did your filter, some rows were hidden because they didn't meet the criteria that we had set, which was home or Austin, more than 60,000 or more in full time. Okay, so let's show you kind of the difference. I have a bunch of data here for the sales for apparel for 3 teams, okay, in January, February, and March. And so on the left side, I have the formula, and on the right side, I have the result, okay? So I'm doing subtotal 9, C2 to C10, and subtotal 1, C2 to C10. So that's on the left. Yes? So you don't have to remember this because when you type subtotal, it tells you what the number and what the function is, okay? But we know that 9 is a sum and a 1 is an average. And so when I do this, the result is that it's going to give me the total sales across all the teams and the average sales across all the teams. Because nothing is hidden, if I use 9 or 109 or 1 or 101, it makes no difference, okay? Now, if I had filtered the data and showed just 101. Then when I do sum 109 or subtotal 101, what it's going to do is it's only gonna show me for the stuff that's visible for team 1. Okay, so they're gonna be different if I use 1 and 9 versus 101 and 109.
Even in the previous slide, we evaluated.
No, this is the sum, this is the total, that's the average. Total, that's function 9 and function 1. Okay, whereas here it's 109 and 101. Let me make sure people understand that. Okay, just to be clear, right? I'm saying I'm gonna sum, so function 9 is the sum function, and I'm gonna sum across all the teams, C2 to C10. This subtotal with a 1 is the average function, and it's gonna find the average. And this is the result of this calculation. So this is showing me the total sales across all the teams, and this is showing the result of this, which is the average sales across all the teams. Whereas here, I've hidden or I've filtered out, and so all I have are the information for team 1. If I use subtotal 109, it's gonna sum, but it's only going to sum the values for the teams that are visible. Okay, in here it's gonna do subtotal, it's gonna average, but only for the teams that are visible. Had I used sum 9 and 1, like subtotal 9, it would have done, even if it's hidden, it would still give me the information for all the teams. Okay, so that's the difference. Here I have, I've hidden a bunch of rows, okay, and I've done subtotal. This is not, let me get rid of this. Okay, so here, even though I've hidden the rows and I only see the information, yes,
We
it's coming,
cannot,
it's coming.
yeah.
Even though I've hidden the rows for the other teams, okay, because I'm using subtotal 9 and subtotal 1, it ignores the facts that they're hidden, and it gives us the total for all the teams, even though we can't see those values, okay? Whereas if I do subtotal 109, then I just get the information for team 1, the ones that are visible, the sheets that are not hidden, okay? When is this useful? This is actually useful when you're doing subtotal over multiple years. So let's go to the spreadsheet and I'll show you the subtotal, okay? So here what I have is using the subtotals. So this is not, there's no great shakes in using subtotal here because it's the same, it's even easier to do the sum, right? I just sum these values and that's here I have to think about how do I do the subtotals, yeah? Okay, but when we get to the end, I want to get the total across all of my regions. This is data for different regions, and I calculated a subtotal for each of the regions, and now I want to get the total across all regions. So when I do subtotal here, I can just put all the cells, and it ignores, so here, it ignores kind of the subtotals that I had intermittently. Whereas if I'm using the sum, I have to go back and pick the exact areas that I want. Because if I pick the sum of everything, it's gonna sum the subtotals into the full total. You guys see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the instance where the subtotals are helpful.
Could you show the formula one?
This one? Yeah, so I'm giving it the whole area, and it ignores the subtotals. It doesn't pick them up. It says, oh, I know that that's a summary. So I'm just going to sum the values of the cells that are not these subtotals. Whereas to do that with the sum function, I actually have to kind of, if I do the sales, I have to kind of pick the values, ignoring the subtotals. Otherwise, it would include them in my sum. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes?
Can you show the formula in E11?
E11, okay? So E11, it says it's just doing the subtotal. So I'm not buying myself anything here relative to the sum, because the sum, I'm just summing that, right? Where I'm buying myself something with the subtotal is kind of at the very end, where here, if I were to do sum and go from here all the way to the top, I would get I would double my result because it would sum all of the subtotals again. Do you see that? Whereas with the subtotal function, I can just put the entire range and it knows to ignore the other subtotals that it computed along the way. That's the benefit, yeah.
Does function number, so function number ignores any row that's hidden, and it also ignores anything that already has a subtotal function on it? Does it ignore anything else?
No, that's
Just
it.
those two things?
Those two things, okay?
All you need.
Okay.
It's not on a subtotal, like it's all any summary value, it's gonna ignore that.
Any subtotal function. What do you mean by summary
Like,
value?
if we, instead of subtotal, if we calculate it, like, oh yeah, average and everything counts in that, yeah.
It's gonna count it. All right, so that's just an aside. Okay, a couple other table-related, table-related kind of tips. Take a look here. If we come back to our intro to Excel tables, if you right-click, you have this option of select, and you can, so let me do that again. I'm here, I'm gonna right-click, I can say select the data, the column data, and then if I do, let me see what it is, I forget, Control Shift and the number 4, Control Shift and the number 4, it automatically puts currency. Okay, if I do Control Shift prime, it's just a general. So these are, you know, if I do Control Shift pound, it get 5, it gives me percent and so forth. This works with any data set, anything that you don't have to be in an Excel table, but this is a quick formatting choice, okay? So Control Shift 4 will get me that with currency formatting. Okay, this is, how's the pace of things so far? Let me clear this from the last time. All right, so let's continue here. Okay, so now let's talk about kind of the structure references in tables. Okay, so here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to go to your table, the one that we just formatted as an Excel table, okay? And what I want you to see, okay, is that, take a look at the middle screen and then we'll do this after. If I move the cursor of my mouse, as I start to go down, do you see how, try that please, can you put the cursor above? When you get, as you start to go down, the first thing that's gonna highlight is you're gonna get the J with that down arrow. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
If you keep going down a little bit more, okay, you are going to get this little kind of white plus sign. Yes? Okay. And if you go a little bit, you're just gonna get the arrow, but not with, and if you keep, you're just gonna get the little black arrow without anything highlighted. Do you see that? Okay, so now let me show you. Whenever we're bringing the cursor down and the column header highlights, if I were to click my mouse now, it would select the entire column. Okay, that's what it would do. So I'm there, it's gonna give me the whole column. Okay, if I go down a little bit more and I get just that down arrow, do you guys see, like without the column header highlighted, that's going to give me just the column, the table column. Okay, if I go down and I get the little square, the little white plus sign, okay, that's going to select the name of the column. Okay, and finally, if I just go in and I click on a cell, I'm gonna get the value in the cell. Okay, so now let's talk about how this plays a role when we're doing kind of Excel tables. What I wanna do is I'm gonna show you, please go to the Excel tables reference. Okay, and here, what I have two bonuses. Okay, so let's go here, Excel table references. I have two bonuses. Can you double click on the first bonus? Okay, notice that it's picking, the entire column. Years of service is greater than 5, give them a 0.10% bonus times the annual salary. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they get no bonus. Okay. Please now go ahead and double click on the bonus 2. So it says, oh, take whatever this row's years of service, and if it's greater than 5, take 0.1 times the equivalent value here and multiply it times 0.1, yes? Okay, when you write if statements, you click on the cell, right? You would go if annual salary, whatever that is, let's see. So if you would do this, we would say if K2 is greater than 50,000, then give me 0.1 times, is that right? Oh, if years of service, sorry. If years of service, so M2 is greater than 5, then 0.1 times K2. Yes? That's how we'd write the formula. Okay, otherwise 0. Okay, oh, so it added another column, which I didn't want it to do. Okay, if you do this, okay, that's what you intended to do. That's how you get with this at in front of it. Okay? Whereas on this particular side, the way that this was gotten, so let me show it to you. Okay. Okay, so if I were to say if, okay, and now watch what happens. If I pick here, I'm gonna get M. I don't wanna do that because I only wanted to do the if statement for the table, the data in the table. So I'm gonna go down, and now if I get to the arrow, it's gonna say years of service. So this is like, do you remember when we define names and we define sales? That's that. If you do that under the Excel tables, that's like the sales that we defined. I wouldn't do that. It's kind of gets more complicated, right? But we could do it. It's greater than 5, then take, and now notice, up here it's too far. Down here, it's just gonna give me the header. So we don't want the header, and so we would say, oh, give me 0.1 times, again, oh, there it is. That, otherwise 0. So that's this one. But I think it's easier when you're calculating with these tables is just to click on the cell. If years of service, when you see the at, it's picking the actual cell. If it's greater than 5, then 0.1 times the annual salary with the at, otherwise 0. Do you guys understand? So those are the differences. Okay, so you can, the reason why I'm showing you this is because one, sometimes it's easier to work, like when you do sum ifs, it's much easier to say sum if salary is great, right? It's much easier to use the structure of the Excel table. But some of you found out in the homework that if you have an Excel table on the example where you had like northeast or, right, once you drag, it doesn't work. So sometimes having the table is helpful, sometimes it isn't. And so I just want you to be able to kind of go back and forth between the two, okay? If you want to get rid of a table, it's pretty easy, okay? Please go to Excel tables, convert to range, the worksheet. If you want to do that, all you do is you go to the contextual tools and you click on convert to range. I sent you an email if you wanted to do that in your homework. So again, here we're gonna go to the table tools design and say convert to range, and it says, do you wanna convert it? Yeah, I do. Okay, and so look what happens. It gives me the notation, with the names of the actual sheet and the cell name, depending on which one you use. Okay? So that, but you keep the formatting, which is kind of nice. Okay. All right, so that's it. Let's talk about very quickly, just for some things that you may not have been familiar with. This is super simple. Excel rounding function. So the int function, the round up, round down, and the trunk function. So let's go to do that. What does the int function do? What is it?
Decimal point. Makes it a whole
Whole number, but it always lowers it. Always rounds it down. Okay, so even though this is 0.56, it rounds it down to the lowest, to the closest integer. Okay? The round function does exactly what we think. Okay, but we have this thing with the number of digits. Okay, so you can look at the number of digits. If you don't put anything, it's just gonna, I guess you have to put it. So you have to put 0.
Alright.
And it's gonna round it just to the closest integer. We're using the 0.5 or higher to up to the next or lower. But if you do round, let's say -2, it lowers it like 2 figures from the decimal point, the lowest 100. Lower it to the closest 100. You guys see that? So let me show you. Let me add. So round with 0 will get you that. For round with -2, we'll do the following. Okay, so if I made this 4,600, it would lower it to the, if I do a round with a -3, it's gonna go to what? 4,000. Okay, so it's rounding to the closest. Okay, the truncate just cuts the number off. So if you do truncate this with 1 digit, it's gonna cut it at 50. It's just gonna cut it off. It doesn't do any rounding. It just kind of, or if you do trunk with 0, it just truncates it to the integer that it has, independent of whatever. Okay, the round up will take a number, and if you put it with it will round up to the next integer. The round down will do the same with a 0. It will round it down to the closest integer. And then, of course, the absolute function, the ABS, will give you the absolute value of a number. And so all of the truncate and the round up have the same thing. So if you look at these functions, when you click on them, you can go to the Excel help, and it will discuss what happens if you make the digits, if you make it less than 0, then the number is rounded to the left of the decimal point, whereas if you make it the number greater than 0, the number is rounded to the specific number of decimal places, okay? So this is how the round function works. Okay, let's continue here. This Excel information function, the is blank returns are true. These are all Boolean operators, Boolean functions is even, Is odd, is logical, so if it's true or false. Is text, returns true if it's a text. Is non-text, returns a true if it's a date, or a number, or blank, or an error message. So let's take a look at that. So if we say, this is pretty straightforward. Is blank. It's gonna give you, so you guys can try this. Is even. And so here it's gonna say it doesn't know how to assess that. Okay, whenever it's text. The same thing for the is odd. And the is logical. I'm only writing this because the results are pretty straightforward. Okay, so here, because we have a false, then this is true. The same thing with the is text. It's true for this one, and false for the numbers, and false for the logical value. Is non-text. It will be true for the numbers, and it'll be true for the Boolean, and it'll be true for the blank cell. And then is number will also be what you expect. Okay, and so just notice here, right, that here we have a cell with space, and so the space is true that it's a text, okay, even though we don't see it. So this is pretty straightforward stuff. Sometimes when you're parsing through data, it's helpful to remember these so that you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel in terms of figuring out if the user entered the correct format or not. Okay, let's do advanced filtering, then we'll do a break, and then we'll do pivot tables. Okay, so when we started today and we did the filters here, that I asked you to do with the different people, those are all end conditions, right? We wanted to see all the people that were full-time, anybody who was in the home office, or they could be in the home office and in Austin, and who earn more than 60,000. But sometimes you wanna pick two distinct groups, right? I wanna pick the women who are over 5 feet, and the men who are under 6 feet. And so those are, I'm not gonna find two people that like this, they don't overlap. And so I went or, two sets of or conditions, okay? And so that's when advanced filtering works for us. It allows us to do two sets of conditions that have or, that are disjoint, but internally have a set of meeting criteria, the criteria that they need. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I want, for my data set, I want to find consultants, that all the consultants that have worked for more than 3 years, and who earn more than 55,000, or any part-time employee who has worked for the company for 2 or more years. Okay, so those are two separate groups of people, but I want to pull them out at the same time, and so that's how I'm going to use advanced filtering. Or I want to find all the employees hired in 2008 or later with a pay grade of 1, 2, or 3, and then any employees hired before 2008 of grades 3 and 4. Okay? So how do we do this? We're going to use advanced filtering, and when you do advanced filtering, you have to create what's called a criteria range, where you define what it is that you're looking for. Okay? And so let me kind of show you. This is really tiny. Let me try to make this big. You can see it. Okay, it's gonna show up and then I'll tell you. Okay, so when I'm doing, when I have my data to use advanced filtering, I copy the top row of the labels of the columns again, it's gonna come up, okay? So notice that here I have on top in row 1, I've recopied the information that are the labels for the columns for the data. Okay, I added some rows. Now, this is the criteria range. Okay, so what I said is that on the job status, I want all consultants, which are CN versus full-time and part-time, that's the alternative. I want all of the ones that earn less than 55,000. You guys see in row 2 of the data, and that years of service are greater than 2. So anything that is in the same row, those are and, you know, consultant and less than 55 and at least 3 years. Anything that is in a separate row becomes an or any part-time worker that has worked for 2 or more years. Okay, so this is how you set it up. All right, so how do we do this? Here you see that it says, it looks to us like we wrote equals CN and equals PT. You guys see that?
Yeah.
But actually, there's a kind of a weird way. So if you write in the cell, here's an example. If I write, I want the condition to be AUS or Austin, AUS will return anybody who starts with AUS. Austin, Austria. If I put Austin, it's gonna return anybody that has Austin or Austin Lake, okay? So if I put the wild cards, it's gonna be Lake Austin, Falston, Australia. If I want it to be exactly what I want, like the CN, then I have to write it in this weird way. Equals, quote, equals Austin, close quote. So equal, quotes, equals CN, close quotes. That's gonna, and it's gonna look like this, but it's gonna be written with this weird setup, okay? So if you know that there aren't many different things, you just write it. But if you know you need it exactly, you gotta write it in this weird way. I don't know why, okay? So, tell me, so let's go. Here's our condition. Tell me what am I looking for on the data set? What am I looking for if I just have this as my condition?
So you go to Austin and ask less than 50,000 salary.
Great, so the locations, everybody who works in Austin and who's annual salary. What about this one? Oh, sorry.
Everyone in Austin less than, greater than.
Or anyone
Less than 4 years.
who works in home, right, earns more. Okay, what about this one?
Greater than 50,000 and less than equal to 75,000 or less than 75,000.
Okay, so notice, right, that if I'm trying to find a range, I have to add the column. I have to add an additional column and say, oh, for the annual salary, it's gonna be anybody who's greater than 60 and then again less than 75. So those are the folks in that range. You have to add another column or anyone who has learned less than 25,000, okay? So the way that you do advanced filtering is that it's under the data tabs. It's a little thing right there on the advanced filter, okay? And let's do it together. So, so if we go here to advanced filtering, the first thing we have to do is you don't have to add the criteria range on the top, but I think it's helpful. So we can insert some and then copy the first row of the table and replace it. Okay, so that is going to give me my criteria range. I could also have just inserted it below the
insert
data,
5 rows
so it's up to you, okay? So again, what I did here is I selected the first 5 rows of the data, and then I right-clicked on it and I said, no, I don't want to insert copied cells. I right-clicked and I said insert, and it gave me these additional rows. And then I selected row 6 and I copied it back and pasted it as my row 1, yeah? Okay, So now what I'm trying to do here is I wanna find, all the consultants that have worked for more than 3 years and who earn more than 55,000. So here, let's go take a look at the data. If you look at the data, let me do a quick filter for you to see. If I look at the data, I don't have to worry about having, you know, some other choice that's gonna be picked up. So I can just write equal CN because I'm not worried about anybody else, any other CN2, CN3 being picked up by accident. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, I want, all the consultants, okay, consultants, who have, worked for more than 3 years. So I'm gonna go to, years of service greater than 3, okay? And whose, salary are more than 55,000. So the annual salary is greater than 55,000. So that's all of the first set of people, okay? Or part-time employees who have worked for 5 or more years. So I'm gonna say part-time workers that have worked for 5 or more years. Okay, or employees who work in the home office, for, more than 7 years. So now I'm gonna say the location is the home office and that have worked for more than 7 years. So those are all of the groups of people that I'm searching for. Notice that I wouldn't be able to kind of get these people with a regular filter because I can't kind of distinguish the regular filters and everybody meets the criteria. Okay, so now the way that we do this is once you've created the criteria range, you go to the data tab and then you click on the advanced filter button. So let's go ahead. So here it is, there's advanced filter. Okay, and so it's going to say, all right, there are a bunch of things happening here. First, it says, do you want to filter the list in place? I'm not going to filter it in place because I want to do multiple searches. So I'm gonna say, no, listen, I'm gonna want you to put it in another location. It kind of recognizes that the data, the list that I have, is from A6 to M16, 116, and then it says, what is the criteria range? And so I'm going to say the criteria range, including the headers, okay, is all of this data right here, from A1 to M4, yeah? And then I'm gonna say, listen, I want you to copy it to kind of starting row 119. I don't have to tell it exactly how big, because I don't know how many records are gonna be pulled up, okay? Yes? And then I have an option to say unique records, but I'm not gonna do that, I'm just gonna let them do it. Okay, and so when it does the advanced filter, there it is. It pulled up all of the people that satisfy those 3 criteria. Okay, let me walk around. Do folks need help?
I got lost.
Okay, so let's do it again. Okay, so are folks at this point with me or no?
Yeah.
With the criteria range? No. Okay, where are you, Akanksha?
I mean, I need to learn how to put the insert the rows in the middle and then
Okay, so let's do that together. That's perfect. Okay, so we're here. Everybody here?
Yes.
Are you here, Akanksha? Okay. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say I need room to put my criteria range. So I'm gonna select the first, say, 6 rows of my table like that. And then I'm going to right click and I'm gonna say insert. And that's going to move the data 6 rows down. Yes or no? No? Okay, I can do it, that's okay. You have to select the.
yeah, and then I did
The entire. So you have to select the entire rows. You were selecting the tables, you were selecting these. And I'm saying select the first
So did
six.
you create the new emoji for yourself?
Anybody else need help with that?
Not done. Good. Yeah. No.
Okay.
No. Just do that.
All right, so now, once you've done that, you copy the top, the header row, Control C, again, the entire, and then you go to row 1 and Control V. Are folks there or not? Call me if I can show you. Yes? Okay, so now we need to just write again the conditions that we were given. Consultants, more than 3 years, less than 55,000. So consultants are here, CN, okay, that have, more than 3 years. Is it greater than or equal, or is it more? Yeah, more than 3 years, and who earn more than 55,000. So greater than 55,000. Are you there? Okay, the next group, or part-time employees that have worked, so PT that have worked for 5 years or more. Okay? And then employees work at the home office for more than 7 years. So the location is home, and they have worked for more than 7 years. Yes or no? Okay, so once we've done this, then we just click where our list is, our data is, and we go to the data tab, and then to the advanced filter option. Yes, and we click on the advanced filter, and it's gonna say, okay, our data, so first of all, the first action is, do you wanna filter the list in place, or do you wanna copy it to another location? Because I'm gonna do another filter, I'm gonna say I wanna copy this to another location. Also in the homework, I'm gonna ask you to do multiple filters, so you put it in a different location, and then you re-filter for the next part of the problem. Okay, so the list range, it's where the data is, so it's A7 to M117. Yours might be a little different if you added fewer or more rows to your data. The criteria range, so here you have to add the header row, and so for me, it's going to be A1 to M4. Okay? And then it says to me, where do you want to copy this to? And so for me, I had already picked before what was 119, but I'm going to pick A120. Okay? And then I'm going to say, all right, okay? And then it has selected. And I can go through and figure out kind of what is the rationale for why each of these people were selected. But they all will meet the criteria. Okay? All right. Let's take a break until 7:30, and then we'll come back, and then we'll do. Last week, we learned about conditional formatting, and so I just want to show you, I created 3 conditional formats to highlight which of the conditions were being used. Remember how we had, when we did advanced filter, we had 3 conditions, right? Consultants who had worked for more than 5 years and earned more than 55,000. So you can see that there are 2 people who meet those criteria. We also had people that worked in the home office and worked for more than 7 years. In our data set, there were 2 people who matched those criteria, and then we had everyone else who were part-time and had worked for more than 5 years, yeah? So as you can see, when Excel pulls the information, it doesn't pull it, it pulls it the way that it appears in the data set. It doesn't pull like the first criterion and then the second and then the third. Things are mixed up. So if you want to see it, you can do it, but one way to do it is using conditional formatting to highlight which ones were selected, okay? This is just if you want to see it, but it does do what you expect. It's just not in the order, it doesn't group them in the order that you may want them to be grouped. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next, okay, for the homework, when you do the homework, if you tell it to paste on the side, okay, the list that it pulls out, sometimes Excel kind of goes crazy and it does really weird things. And so if you want, if you pull the material away, either put it above the data or put it below the data, okay? If you wanna have it on the side, do everything and then copy it afterwards. Otherwise, it gives you problems. Also, you cannot filter to another worksheet. It won't let you. You have to filter to the worksheet that you're on. So if you wanna put the information in another worksheet, you have to do it afterwards, okay? It doesn't allow you. You can try it, but it doesn't allow you to do it. Okay, question. Okay, let's now, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna copy this, okay, myself, and I'm gonna put it down here. I'm gonna insert so that I have what the criteria range and what the criteria, so you can do that in the homework too. Kind of put the range and then put the data right below it. It's up to you. Okay, so now let's do one more here. Example, employees hired in 2008 or later in pay grade 1, 2, and 3. So we want, by the way, because you guys are just coming in, the office hours next week, I'm canceling Wednesday, and I'm gonna have office hours instead on Monday, okay? So we want folks hired in 2008 or later, and then pay grades 1, 2, or 3, and then folks hired before 2008, what pay grades 3 and 4. That's the criteria. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna delete this information from here. Okay, so how do I do this? How do I get, so I want folks hired in 2008 or later. So what do I put for the hire date here? So
Greater than one.
Greater than or equal, right?
Yeah.
1/1/2008. And then how do I get pay grades 1, 2, or 3?
Greater than equal to 1.
But that will pick up 4.
Then add another column and then put greater than 1 and 1 column.
Less than or equal to 3,
Oh.
right? Less than or equal to 3. Okay. And then we want folks that are less than, prior to, less than 1/1/2008. And whose pay grade are 3 or 4, so I'm gonna say greater than or equal to 3. But if I had like a 5th one, then I would have to add one that said, another pay grade column that said greater than or equal to 3, less than or equal to 4, because that would give me 3 and 4. Okay, so then I do the same thing as I did before. Are folks with me or no?
Yes.
Okay. Advanced filter, I have to change this because I don't, my criteria range now is just A1 to M3. Okay, and I'm gonna ask it to copy it to a different location. Now, when you copy to a different location, you need to make sure that there's enough room. If there isn't enough room, it will not tell you. It will just copy it until it gets to a cell that has something. Okay, so you need to make sure that wherever you tell it that below it there's enough space to fit everything. Otherwise, you won't know that there's something's missing. Okay. And so now we are here, and we have a lot of people. Oh, did I make a mistake? Maybe I made a mistake. Let's see here.
It does look like a lot of people.
Because it's, let me see how many people I picked up.
We picked up essentially everyone.
Yeah, so maybe I made a mistake, so let me see
M-
here.
maybe the pay grade is too broad.
No, cause I didn't have a, no. Let me just double check here that everything is correct. I'm just gonna do a quick, um, I said greater, right, than or
is
equal
what
to
this
big
thing, right?
value.
Yeah.
You select this.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Q.
Oh,
No, is it?
I don't know.
And I said, what else? It's a
Pay
pay
grade
grade,
less than equal
is this, this guy. You don't have to do this, I just wanna see.
Let's see this.
Oh, yeah.
Less
Is it less than?
Copy to copy where?
Okay, so
I'm
that's
not
the
getting an
people.
option.
Okay, so I did, it's just that there's a lot of people, right?
Oh.
So that's the situation, it's just that I picked a lot of people, okay? But it's okay. All right, so that's how you do conditional
References in
format.
another.
I don't think that the pace has really been pretty,
So the list range is the entire table, right?
the entire table, that's right.
So how do you select the entire table?
You don't have to, as long as you, as long as it's contiguous, as long as your cursor's in there, your mouse, you click on one of the cells, it'll do it. If you wanna, okay, let me show you. Either when you're here on your data, just by virtue of being in the data, it's going to guess it. It's gonna guess that that's but if you don't like it, you can just say, oh, here, I'm gonna start here, Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift right
That's
arrow.
what we did.
Yeah.
Just as we did before. But it will pick it up for you if it's contiguous.
Okay, and then we have to just put up the criteria range and,
In the top and then run it. If you wanna put it in a different location, then you tell it where you want it to go.
okay.
Okay, to another location where you want it to go. Otherwise, filter it in place.
Criteria range includes the header.
Criteria range must include the header. It will not work. Okay, that's a great question. Listen, the criteria range must include the header. If you don't put the header, it doesn't work. Okay, that's a okay, so now let's do something that's kind of a little more interesting and easier to kind of, so here's the caveats for advanced filtering. Okay, you need to make sure that where you extract the data to has enough rows. When you specify the ranges, the list range, you have to select the header row, otherwise it doesn't work. And then when you extract, put it in a new part of the sheet, either below, you can't do it to a new sheet, but don't do it off to the side, okay, that doesn't work. All right, so now let's talk about pivot tables. How many people have done pivot tables before? Raise your hand. Okay, so pivot tables are really, really easy to do, okay? And so they're really a great way to summarize data. So remember all the sum ifs we did? You can pretty much kind of do away with them with pivot tables. It's there's a place for pivot for sum ifs, but a lot of what we do, we can really easily do it with pivot tables, okay? Let's talk about what you can do. To create a pivot table, you need to have the data in a proper Excel format. The data has to be clean. And so what that means is that you can't have kind of blank rows in the middle or blank columns in the middle of your data. You can't have already summary information like subtotals or sums. All you need is the data itself, okay? You want to have a header row that is clear in its kind of in a manageable size, and you don't have to sort the data when you're going to run a pivot table. So here's an example of a data set that doesn't work. It's really messy. It has subtotals right there, which you don't want. It has kind of these gigantic kind of column labels here. It has a bunch of blank rows, so we want to get rid of all of that. And so we wanna take it from here and just kind of have the data, very cleanly, displayed, on a spreadsheet. So let's go to the intro, to pivot tables, worksheet. Oh, you need to go to there's a pivot table tutorial workbook, on Blackboard, thank you. Okay. So here's the data. This is a really, really old data set, okay? Like it's from the time of Job, but it's really old data set. But it's really a nice data set. There are actually other tutorials that use it, and I think it's just so easy to kind of interpret, and so that I think I want to use it. In Blackboard, everything that I'm gonna do today, there's a Word document that has step-by-step instructions. So there are many things that I'm gonna kind of gloss over. You should go and you should do the tutorial. And the way that to do that is that there's a bunch of questions here. I'm gonna cover all the questions for the salespeople. I'm only gonna cover 3 questions here, and I'm not gonna cover any of the questions. But on the Word file, there is how to create the pivot tables to answer all of these questions, and you can see them step by step, okay? All right. So what this data set contains are salespeople information, with the orders that they've placed and the amount, that each order, was for, okay? These are orders for, different products, okay? So here are the orders, and each of the orders, that are listed, in the salespeople with the order ID. Okay, with this order ID, they appear here. An order could have multiple items in it. There's a description of the item, the unit price, the quantity sold, whether there was a discount, and the price that was extended. And for each of the products in our table, we have what category that product belongs to, and what were the sales for that particular product in each of the different quarters, okay? So that's the data set. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're going to use this to answer the questions and to insert a pivot table. So to insert a pivot table, just click anywhere in your data. Go to the salesperson worksheet, click anywhere in the data set, okay? And then you can go to Insert tab and click on Pivot Tables. Insert tab and click on Pivot Table. Insert tab, it's the first thing on the left. Pivot table. No, not pivot chart, pivot table. Okay, and when you get that, there it is. And then it's gonna ask you, is the data that you have from A1 to E800, okay? And you say okay, and then it's gonna ask you kind of where do you wanna put your pivot table? Do you wanna put it on a new worksheet or in an existing worksheet? Today, we're gonna put it in a new one. When you do the homework, you may use the same one to put part A, part B, and so forth, okay? And if you click on an existing, then you just go to the place where you wanna put the new pivot table. Okay, so everybody, when you do it, click OK. You should get a table that's gonna look like what I have in the middle screen. Is that what you got? Okay, sometimes, I don't know why, the table that you get looks like that. Okay, I don't know why. So if you figure out why, tell me. There's no difference, okay? Whether it looks like this or whether it looks like that, the result, once you start creating the table, they're gonna be the same. Okay, let's talk about what happens when you begin to create. So you should have, on the right, you should have a bunch of things that are the fields, the pivot table field list. Do you have that on the right?
Yes.
And so notice that the labels on the pivot table field list are the headers of your column. Okay, so watch this quickly. I'm gonna create my pivot table. Okay, and it's okay. And now watch what's gonna happen. I'm gonna come here and I'm going to Okay, and then I'm gonna come back to my pivot table. Don't do that. I'm gonna say, hey, refresh. Okay, refresh all. And notice what's gonna happen here, if I can get this to work. I don't know why this is so tight. Do you see? That's how it reflects. So this is why we wanna have kind of meaningful names. Okay, let me show you another thing here too. If I insert a row here and I say, okay, I want to insert a pivot table, it's gonna stop where it has the row. So this is why we don't wanna have blank rows or blank columns, because once it gets to a blank row, it says that's the end of your data set. Okay, so if you have blank rows, get rid of them. Okay. All right, so now we have the name of our data set here, and this is what we're going to use to construct our report. Okay, so here are the fields, and this is how you construct the report. And so the way that I want you to be thinking about it is that when I say, oh, I want a table that is gonna give me this information, think about the layout and say, what is gonna go in the rows? Is there what I want in the columns, and what are the values that are gonna populate the table? In fact, that is exactly what you have when you look here. It says what's gonna be in the rows, what's gonna be defining what the columns are, and what are the values that are gonna go into the table. Pretty straightforward, okay? Now, the first question in the notes here, it says, you know, what are the total sales, what are the total order amounts for each salesperson? In other words, how much has each salesman sold in total? Okay, if we didn't know pivot tables, how could we do that?
Filter.
Say that again.
A regular filter.
Summit, right? But I would have to figure out the name of the people first, because if I don't know the name of the people, then I might miss somebody. What did you say?
A filter.
So I could filter for each person, and then on the side, sum it, right? And then kind of undo my sum, kind of a mess. I could use the subtotal that I figured out today, right? So I could do that. Okay. I could also just sort everybody and then do it by hand, right? Find the people, don't do that. Okay, so here's how quick and how easy it is, okay? So what we're going to do is, let me talk about different kinds of variables. Excel has two types of variables when it's doing pivot tables. It has what are called categorical variables. So for example, salesperson, the names of people, those are categories, right? I can't add John and Paul, right? They're gonna be marked as for rows. And whenever you click on a field that is categorical, it immediately tries to put it in the rows, okay? So this is what's gonna happen. Go to your worksheet and click on salesperson in the little box next to the salesperson. Excel immediately says, oh, those are people. I can't do it, there can't be values. So I'm gonna guess that you want them to be in the rows. Do you see that?
Yes.
Unclick your salesperson. Okay, click on the word salesperson and drag it to the rows.
Didn't get it. What?
Drag salesperson. No, don't click, drag, click on the word salesperson and then drag it to rows. Keep dragging, go. Got it. Same thing, so you can either click or you can drag. Everybody yes, Bowen?
Yeah.
You
It's
can
actually
click
planning to buy.
or you
Yeah.
can
So I
drag.
was wondering, should I?
Okay, so click
there
or
was
drag.
something for
And
$12.
Luis, Carlos, you guys good with this? You've done this before, yes? You
But
too?
how is this?
Okay, so that's a categorical variable. Okay, Excel also has continuous variables, so these are things, quantities that can be summed, average, you can find them in. When you click on a variable, on a column that has what Excel considers to be continuous variables, it automatically puts it on the values. Okay, so go ahead and click on the order amount. Immediately, Excel says, oh, those are numbers, and by default, I'm gonna sum them. Okay, so that's how quick we got the pivot table that tells us the total order for all of the people. Okay, questions? We can also, so let me do that. Yes? Okay, so I can, what was the question, Akanksha?
No, nothing. I'm gonna ask what if you wanna take out the average and then I saw that's the next step, so I didn't ask.
Okay, so if I want to do salesperson, okay, I'm gonna drag it here, and then I'm going to say, by the way, what I mean is that, this is categorical. These two are categorical, right? These three, Excel are gonna see them as continuous because they have numbers in them, okay? Okay, and then I can get order amount. Okay, and now I have the total for each of these people. If I drag order amount again, please go ahead and drag order amount again. Below, you're gonna get two choices of order, two sets. Let me do it again. So here I am, I'm gonna go to order amount, take a look please, and I'm gonna click on it and I'm gonna drag it down and I'm gonna put it below. Are folks able to do that? It will not work if you just unclick it and click it again. You only get it once. To get it a second time, you have to drag it down. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so now what we can do is a couple things. We can come to the column and we can say, you know what? I don't want you to give me the sum again. I want you to summarize the value by giving me the average. Okay, so now let me make these, I'm gonna format these as currency so that it's easier to see. Are folks with me or no?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it again, okay, I can do it again. I'm gonna drag order amount again, all the way down. And I'm gonna say, hey, right click, don't show me the minimum order for each of these guys. Are folks with me or no? Yes? Okay, so when I can do as many of those as I want, okay? I can also do a count. I can say, show me account, summarize value by account. This is giving me in dollars because I formatted it as dollars, but it's actually account. Okay, so let's continue. So this is pretty straightforward, okay? Now, let's talk about this idea of summarize the value by. Let me show you something else. You can also, when you're here to summarize the value by, let me move this guy. My thing is, okay, I'm trying to move. I think it's easiest to come here and say summarize value by, but you can also do it right here. If you click, do you see value field setting? If you click on that, you can say what do you want? Show summarize value as sum, or count, or average. Okay, so those are easier ways. Or you can come here and when you're here, say, okay, field settings, I want a sum. But there are multiple places where you can get it to do. I think the easiest one is to just right click and say summarize value by. Are folks okay with that? Okay, all right, so now let's continue. Okay, categorical variables. So let's go ahead and clear our pivot table. So let's go ahead and clear. So if you just drag stuff out, it will be back to normal. Okay, what I can do here, my pivot table is like my screen is very small. What happens is when I get categorical variables and I drag them to the value, to the sales value, what it does is it says, so here's country, right? So notice that country is either UK or USA. So if I drag country to values, it's formatting as dollars because I made the format, but if I say general, okay. So when I do this, what is the summarizing that it's using? Count, right? It's using count. So whenever you drag a categorical value, a variable to values, it's going to do a count, okay? It's going to give you as a summary statistic the count. Okay, There are different types of layouts on a pivot table. I'm gonna show this to you, and there's other times where, depending on what you're trying to convey to the user, each of these report layouts are gonna be more useful than others, okay? So let me show you. So can you click on the design tab? Can you click on the design? This is another contextual tab, the design tab up there. Yeah? So here, you're gonna see the report layout. So let me show you, look at the middle screen so you can see, because it's hard to see. So here's the tabular layout, okay? Every entry has its own column. Let me show you the outline. Now, not everything, you have these indentations here. And in the compact, the indentation is not everything has its own column, okay? If you're gonna create tables or to download tables elsewhere, the tabular layout is the best. And if you're gonna do kind of tables, having the tabular layout is the best. In general, that's the default, but sometimes Excel does weird things and picks the outline one, okay? So that's the difference. Okay, how is the pace?
Where is the tabular format? Do you need the tabular?
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right. So now what I want to do is I want to answer a bunch of these questions as we go along. The first question that I want to answer is, what are the total order amounts for each salespeople by a specific country? Okay, so there are many different ways that we can answer this question. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Okay, how could I lay out the table? How could I lay out this table? I'm asking, I want to know sales by country for the different salespeople, right? So I want you to recognize that I could have the table looking like this. I could have the country, so I could have UK and all the salespeople, okay, and then their amounts, and then I could have USA and all the salespeople and their amounts. Yes, that's one way. I could have the table where I have, UK, USA, salespeople,
Yep.
and then the amounts. Yes?
Yeah,
And so there are many different ways that I can lay out the table. When I ask you questions on an exam, I'll ask you, tell me what this result is. I don't care how you lay out the table, as long as you give me the correct. So if I say, tell me how much was sold by, Buchanan in the third quarter. I don't care how you lay out the table, as long as you give me the correct answer. Okay, so let's do this. So one thing that I could do is I could do, the second table would look like this. I would drag the country to the columns, and then I would drag watts to the values. I would set order amount, yeah? So this looks really weird because the salespeople are either in the US or in the UK. There is no overlap, right? So it's kind of a weird table to have it like this. You folks see that?
Yes.
So what I could do is I could say, you know what? I don't want to do that. How do I take what I have here and create the first table? What do I do to the country? What do I do to this country? Where do I drag it to?
Rows.
Row. Do I drag it above salesperson or below?
Above.
Above, because if I do below, it's gonna say for each person, give me their country, right? So I want the country to be first, and now I have the UK, Buchanan, and so forth, yeah? What kind of a layout is this that I have? How can I tell? It's tabular, because everybody, right? But if I said, hey, no, show it to me in outline, not very exciting, no big shakes here. But if I do, not tabular, If I do compact, things look a little bit kind of interesting, right? So it's a little more, compact. So, okay. One other thing, take a look, please, take a look at the middle screen. Watch what happens if I click outside of my pivot table.
It goes away.
So my field list goes away. Do you guys see that? Now, watch if I say, oh, I don't want it, and then I click X, and now when I come here, it's gone. So how do I get it back? I go to the Analyze tab, and right there, show, oops, sorry, not sign in, show field list, and now it's back. But if I click out, that disappears. Are folks okay with that? Okay, all right, let's continue here. The next question is, how are salespeople ranked in descending order by total order amount? So let's get rid of the country. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I could do filters. I could do a filter for the country, and then this is showing me everyone. Did you see what I just did? Please take a look. I was here, and I just said, no, I'm gonna filter by country. This is showing me all the salespeople. I could say, hey, just show me the folks in the UK, filter it, or show me just the folks in the USA, okay, or show me everybody. So 3 different tables that get to me at the information about country and salespeople, okay? Now, let's talk about how to, are we okay? This is really straightforward stuff. I mean, this is like very intuitive. Okay, I wanna order the salespeople by, in descending order, okay? So I'm gonna go to the salesperson right here, and you can see I have the sort A to Z, sort Z to A, but I'm not trying to sort alphabetically. So
By
there's the
default
next
is-
one, it says other sort, right? It says more sort options. So click on, are you there or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Click on more sort options. Okay, and now it's gonna say, all right, you have manual descending, but I don't wanna do it by salesperson. I wanna do descending by sum of order amount. If I had multiple columns, those multiple columns would be there, and I could pick which one I wanted to do descending by. Are we okay? Okay. All right, so now I have in descending order. The next question is, what are the top 5? So take a look. If I click here, I have, in addition to the sort options, I have value filters, okay? And I can say, hey, show me, just as we had before, remember in when we did Excel, I don't know, where did we just see top 10? Where did we see top 10 before? We did see
Data.
Data.
data
Data
validation.
validation.
So top 10, and then I say, hey, show me just the top 5. So now I have the top 5, okay? If I wanna clear the filter, please clear your filters. You come here, and there's the option to clear the filters. Yeah? So go ahead and clear the filter. And we can say, hey, just sort them alphabetically, and we're back to where we were. Yeah, or no? So again, we can, under the sort, I just went and I said sort alphabetically from A to Z. Okay, let's talk about, yes or no?
Yes.
Question, what is it, Nadia?
How to clear?
I'm gonna do my filter again, okay? So I'm gonna say, top 5, or top 5 here. Okay, when I want to clear, as I come to the filter, and right below more sort options, it says clear filter from salesperson. Yeah? Okay, great. All right, so now we wanna know, the next question on the list here is to tell you what is the sales, show total sales performance by quarter, broken down by individual salesperson performance, okay? So, again, what do? What do I need to bring into my table?
Quarters.
I need to bring what?
Quarters.
Quarters. take a look at the data set, please. Do we have quarters in the data set?
No, it's not
No.
the date.
So here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to go to date. Do you see order date?
Yeah.
Let's bring order date under salesperson. Can everybody bring order date under salesperson? Okay. Does everyone have this or no? Raise your hand if you don't have this. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to right click on the date.
Yes.
Everybody right clicked on it? I want you to do me a favor and say ungroup. Okay, so I don't know why. Excel tries to help us, okay? And what it does is it looks at this data and it says, you have all this data. I think I can group it. I can group it into quarters, I can group it into months, and it automatically groups it for us, yes. Can you right click on that? And then go to ungroup?
Oh.
And now it's ungroup. I'm gonna show you how to group. I wanna show you how Excel got to where it got, okay? Because it tries to help us. But if you look at the original data only has the dates. Do you have a question, Karen? Okay. So this is the original data, okay? But Excel says, oh, you know what? Let me help you out. So here's what it does. Come over here. Oops. Let's go ahead now and right click on the data. Okay, and let's go to group. Are folks with me or no?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go to group, it says, how do you want to group the data? Okay, so first, what I'd like to do is I'm gonna group the data and I'm gonna say, hey, listen, don't help me out, just group it by quarters. So let's go ahead and group the data by quarters, okay? Okay, so now, what it's asked us to do is to show total sales performance by quarter broken down by individual sales performance. Is this what I have? No,
Yes.
right? Because this is salesperson by quarter. It's not quarter by salesperson. So what do I need to do here? I need to switch the order. Now it's by quarter broken down by salesperson. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to be very cognizant that Excel will do anything you want, even if it's not what you want. Okay? So let's take a look at what this means. I want you, do you see how it got this 22,719 as the orders for Buchanan in Q1? Double click on 22,719, please. Double click on that cell. What did it do?
Show us the value.
So when Excel does the summary, if you double click on the data, it will open another sheet and it will say everything that went into creating that number came from this data set. And if we sum these order amounts, you will see, if I sum these guys, I'm gonna get 22,719. What do you see that's wrong with this? What has it done?
All years.
It's doing Q1 across all the years, right? And I may not want that. I may want to separate the quarters by year, right? So let's go back to the data. Okay, and now let's come back here. Let's right click over here. Okay, and I'm gonna say group, but now I'm gonna say, hey, listen. So what Excel did was this. It said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna group it by quarters, by months, and by years. And then you can slice and dice it any way you want, okay? So let's say okay. So notice that now in here, we have quarters, years, and date value. Everything is in there now. So now it says, oh, I'm gonna break down the data by years, by quarters, and by months. But so I come down here and I say, no, listen, don't help me out so much. Let me take out order date, because order date now has become months. And so now I'm seeing the information by year and by quarters. Do you guys see that? Okay? if I take out the year, okay, if I choose to go ahead and take out the year, I'm basically saying, I'm combining, I don't care. I just wanna see the total sales for all quarter one, all quarter two, and so forth. Are folks with me or no?
Yeah.
Okay. This stuff with the grouping is really useful when you have age groups. So if I'm doing an analysis of a market research analysis, and I have people enter their birthdays, I can say, hey, group the ages every 10 years. So let me get all of the people who are between 20 and 30, or every 5 years, 20 to 25, 25 to 30. I can use the group function to do that grouping for me, okay? And I'm gonna show that in just a second. Okay, so then the next section is how does each salesperson sales varies by quarter. And so this is what we had before. Each salesperson, how do their sales vary by quarter? So just the switch in the order allows us to answer a different question. Are folks okay with that? I think it's pretty cool. I think that's a pretty awesome kind of tool, okay? Okay, we've seen how to get the details for a specific salesperson. What is the percent contribution? Okay. All right, so we've done the things where we've added, take a look. We've put in another order amount, yes? And we've done the minimum, the count, we've done all of that. But there's a really nice functionality, whereas if we come here and right click, not the summarize value by, but show the value as, show value as. So show value as, if I say, hey, show me as a percent of the column total, now it says, okay, Buchanan has contributed 5.6% of the total sales. So let me do that again, please. Take a look at the middle screen. I'm here. Are folks here with me?
Yes.
Okay, Hassini, where are you? So here I'm gonna add another order amount column. And once I do, I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna say, hey, show the value as a percent. It doesn't matter if I choose grand total or column total, okay, in this particular instance. Are folks okay with that? Okay, let me show you something else. Let's take this out. Let's take these guys out. Okay, I want to organize this now, where I'm gonna put, I'm gonna move the quarters to the columns, okay? And I'm going to put, the order amount. So this is telling me kind of what each salesperson sold, okay, in each of the quarters. And then it's showing it to me what they sold in a particular quarter and what a salesperson sold across. Now watch what's gonna happen. Okay, what happens if I say show value as a percent of the grand total? What is the entry going to represent?
Total percentage of each salesperson quarter.
For each salesperson in each quarter, it's gonna show me how much that person contributes to the overall sales. Okay, so let's do that. You don't have to do it, just look. So this is the grand total. Okay, so it says, this is the contribution. Buchanan contribute 5.6% of the total, and this is his contribution to the total from quarter one and quarter two, yeah? Okay, what happens if I do this? Summarize value by column total. What am I going to have?
Quarter one, quarter.
That's right, I'm gonna have the contribution of each salesperson to the sales of that quarter. Yes? Okay. On the other hand, if I say, hey, show me the value as a percent of the row total, it's gonna show me how much, what was the distribution of sales for that salesperson across the different quarters. Yes? Okay, so, a couple other things. Whenever I'm doing this one, having this grand total is kinda stupid, because it's always gonna add up to 100, yeah? So we can get rid of that. Under the design tab, we can say, hey, turn off the grand totals, or I can say, all right, put them on for the rows and so forth, yes.
So how did you get this number, 33.70?
I went and I said, hey, show me the value as is a percent of the row. So that's the distribution of the sales for each of the salespeople,
Okay.
okay? Are we okay with this? All right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not gonna do the bonus, cause I think, maybe, I don't know if I should do it. Let me see, there's a couple things, so let's do a couple things, so, whenever I'm doing, I can also insert pivot charts, so if I have a data set, I can insert a pivot chart, okay, and I can ask kind of it to tell me what kind of a chart it wants. So here it's showing me, it's kind of a crazy chart because it's really busy. So let me, this is showing me the contribution for each person to the quarters, which is what I have. But notice what happens if I do the following. If I say show value as no calculation, now things switch to the numbers. If I say don't give it to me by the quarters, then I just get the amounts. This is bad because of my screen. It's not that the table would actually look nice. in like, if you had like a real, does yours look okay when you do it on yours? Okay, let's see, what else do I wanna show you? Again, if I want to do the percent here of the total sold, I just add another column and then I show value as a percent. It doesn't matter if it's the grand total or the column total. Okay, let's go to the questions for the compare products now so that you can see it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the yellow one. What are the sales total for each product by category? So go ahead and create that table. So you need to insert another pivot table. You don't need to select the entire table, you just need to be inside of the table. That's not gonna work. You need to, okay, let me show the box. Okay, listen guys. When you are in the table, just clicking in the table and say insert pivot table works, okay? If you, on the other hand, do this, watch. If you do this and say insert pivot table, it doesn't work. It thinks it's just that. So when you are inserting, it's enough to just click inside of the table and then say insert pivot table, and it'll pick everything that you need.
Yeah, what do we need? What's the
We are in, oh, I'm supposed to be.
No, it's not that.
So what are the sales,
Oh,
what is the
the
question?
highlighted.
Yeah, what are the sales of total of each product by category?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I did it. Actually, I think I did it.
Okay. So I want the sales by product, right, by category. And I want the sales. What is the table? Is this, do you see how here, it didn't give me the table as tabular. It's given me the table as outline. Okay, so if I come and I say report layout, show me in tabular, that's what it's gonna look like, and I think it's a much easier. Okay, take a look please at the middle screen. Did the folks get this table or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so notice that here I have the beverages. I can tell it, okay, to repeat all item labels. okay? Or I can tell it, do not repeat all item labels. Okay, so that's my choice on the report layout, okay?
Is it okay? Design.
What are the 3 best-selling products in each category? How do you get that? How do we do that? I love it. So Leslie says filter top 10, okay? So take a look here. What are the 3 best-selling products in each category? So I'm going to filter. Do I filter on the category?
No,
No, I
products.
just right mouse on products.
Right mouse on product, and she said value filter, top 3. And so for each category, it tells me the top 3 best. Okay, on the other hand, take a look. If I'm not careful and I say value filter top 3, but I do it on the categories, watch what's gonna happen. It's gonna give me the top 3 categories. Right, so I want to actually be in here and say, hey, under the products, under value filter, give me the top 3. Are folks okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me clear that, yes.
How did you get the categories here? I
Ah.
have the same thing. Beverages here.
Okay, so that's just the layout, so click on it under the design, under report layout, you wanna see tabular.
Oh, that's.
So that's what I meant, how sometimes it's, yeah? Let's go ahead and, yes.
How did you put beverages to like every beverage?
Under report layout, there is a repeat all item labels, or do not repeat all item labels. Do you see that right there? And I want it to repeat. Or I can say, hey, don't repeat it, it's too crowded. Yeah? Okay, so let's go ahead and clear the, the filter here. Okay, so now it's asking us, what are the average, largest, and smallest beverage subtotals? Okay. So I'm gonna take out the product, and here I have, all of the categories. This is what I want to ask, what are the average, largest, and smallest? Let me see if I can do this. I'm not sure what I'm trying to do. Let me see here. Oh, I just want beverages, I don't want, okay, so actually I do want product. Right, but then,
Can we put beverages as filter?
I'm gonna say, don't show me everything, just show me beverages. And so now I filtered out, under the categories, I just selected beverages, and then I have all the products, right?
Yep.
And then here, I wanna see, how do I get the subtotals? I forget. There is a way, give me a minute, let me think about it.
So when you want to select top 5 thing, how do you do that?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
value filters,
Can we add the column
grade top
sales?
10, yeah.
For all 3 of those things, average min.
No, because there's a specific thing I'm trying to do, I just don't remember.
So you just get like coffee in the morning.
Yeah, all these are not many ones.
Give me a second. I found it, okay. All right, so if I go to beverages and I right click, by the way, I'll show you I can do here under field settings, it's gonna say, what kind of subtotals do you want? And I'm gonna say, I want custom subtotals. I wanna show the maximum, the average, and the minimum. And now it's gonna show me what is the average, the maximum, and the minimum across each of. So I'm gonna do that slowly in a second, okay? So again, I have the beverages and the product. I right click on the beverages and I go to field settings. And in here it says, okay, for this category, what do you wanna do? I wanna see subtotals and I wanna do custom subtotals. Show me the average, the minimum, and the maximum for this category. And so it says, okay, the average beverage order for these the average product order is $22.19. The maximum product order was for $25,000, and the smallest was for $42. And the grand total for all the orders for beverages was $102,074. Okay, one last thing, and then I'll let you go. Here's the update. Here's the tutorial. Okay, and it shows you kind of how to click. For each one, it shows you the picture of what you need to do to answer all of the questions that are listed in the question sheet. Okay, and that's available in Blackboard, including the one with the product, right? The one that we just did right now. Okay? Okay. So, that's about it.
All right.
Okay, so I will assign the homework in the next day or so. Please do kind of start it since I won't have office hours on Wednesday. So if you want to come and see me, please come on Monday. Okay, Monday or Tuesday. Okay, and that's it.
She's not gonna have the office hours.
I'm not gonna post the pivot tables in class because you have the full tutorial available to you. Okay, so I'm just gonna,
Yeah, she did. Oh, she's gonna post it there.
So there is no class for next week?
No. Oh no, class? Yeah.
Yeah, just no office hour on Wednesday.
Yeah.